Welcome back, guys, to the 2001 Insight. I am doing the front brakes today. So of course, make sure your car is jacked up. There are little jack points on both sides. There's one there, and there's one on the other side for your front brakes. And first off, we need to take this off. That's pretty easy. You just stick a flathead in there, pry up, and it's just surrounded with clips. After the cap has been taken off, you're going to remove the 4 lug nuts that are on there, and then the tire. To get the caliper off, there's 2 10mm bolts, one up here and one down here on the back. Once you crack those loose, just open them up and the brake caliper should be free. Make sure you rest your brake caliper up out of the way so it's not putting tension on the brake line. Now we're gonna come down to the pads. If you need to replace the pads, we're just gonna pop those out like so, and then you can replace them. But I am replacing the pads, and I'm also going to do the rotor. So next we are going to take the brake bracket off. So to do that, you got to go back here, and there are 2 bolts, the same as these, but they're right here and right back here. You're going to take those off next, and those bolts are going to be a 17mm. Okay, so finally got these out. Definitely had to use a breaker bar on that one. Those are really tough to get out. So also, I am definitely going to have to take these out, re-grease them, and check them because these are completely seized in on both sides. So those definitely need to get some lube and work done on those. But now we move on to the rotor, and of course the stupid Honda screws that keep this thing in place. And like I did have on my last Honda, this beautiful device right here, this is a lifesaver, especially if you have a Honda. It's an impact, whatever they're called. It's like an impact screwdriver or whatever bit that you put at the end. Just put it on there, put it right or left, and hit it with a hammer, and it'll slowly pop it in and turn slightly so it doesn't strip any of these out. This is what Honda uses to get these stupid things out. So if you want one of these, I'll link it down below like I do on my videos. Let's get these out. Once those 2 are out, you can either put a screw in here and it pops the whole thing out, but with all that banging around with that impact screwdriver, this thing's loose. So this thing can come right out, and just like that, you can put in your new brakes. Now, my new brakes I got as a kit. In here I got the rotors and the brake pads. If you guys want this kit so you don't have to buy them separately, this one's pretty decently cheap. Of course, down below. So let's get our brake pads and our rotors, and look how beautiful they are. Look at that, isn't that gorgeous? So we've got these put on. I'm not gonna clean them off yet because I still have to put the screws back in. These ones with the little divots, and they have no threading in the rotor themselves. That's where you put the screws back in. These ones with the threading, they need to go back to the flat part behind this rotor. So that is how it's oriented. Let's get these in. Next, we have to move on to the bracket itself, and like I said, these things do not move very easily, maybe a little bit, but they should not look like this. They should be able to squeeze themselves back in. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take these out. If you just push these up, if you even can, you gotta get the boot off, just push it down, and there's a little lip around here, so pop that out, and then we'll get the bolt out itself. So now that they're out, we need to lube them up and put them back in. Make sure they're not all worn down and whatnot. They're still normal size, because then you're gonna have to replace them. But mine look pretty good. They're just really dried out grease. So you need to make sure you use something like this, which is a synthetic or silicone-based lubricant, because the other stuff will slowly eat away at this rubber. So let's lube them up and put them in. And after greasing back up, I just shoved it back in. The little boot pops back into place, and now it should move up and move itself back down. Just like that. Nice and free. So we're gonna pop this back on and put the bolts back in. Okay, so the bracket is back in place, and before we put the actual pads back on there, we need to clean the surface of everything that was on there, any of your fingerprints or grease or anything. So grab some brake cleaner and spray this bad boy down. Okay, now we're gonna put the brake pads in. The curved outer side here and the little lip on the inside. This little lip goes towards this one, and the curved outer goes towards that, and you're gonna slip them up into these little tabs, both the top and the bottom, on both sides, and then you're set. And last but not least, what we're gonna do is we're gonna come over here back to our piston, and we need to make sure this piston is pushed all the way in so it's actually able to get back over these new Meteor brake pads. Now there's a few ways to bring this back down to flat flush. You can either put the old brake pad on here, and you can use a large pair of pliers, or what I have is a oil filter wrench, something that'll fit over the top of that and the bottom of that and evenly push it down. You can also use a C-clamp, which is the same thing, just big C-clamp that goes over there, twist it, and it'll slowly bring it back down. And to stop any sort of squeaks, make sure you put a little bit of lube around that ring and a little bit of lube on the inside of these arms, right on the inside there, because those are going to be the metal on metal when they're actually attached, so that could cause a little bit of squeaking when you're going down the road or braking. So then we throw the tire back on, the lug nuts, drop the car down, and now we get to torque them. For this car, it is just about 80 pounds. So grab your torque wrench and make sure those are nice and tight. Then you can pop the cover back on, and that is doing your brakes. Hey guys, thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. If you haven't already, make sure you follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram so you can get some behind the scenes stuff that hasn't happened yet and unreleased content that no one else has seen. And if you haven't already, watch that video. And if you watched that video, watch that video. And if you've watched both of those videos already, make sure you subscribe down here. Yeah, watch this stuff. It's awesome. And if you've watched that, and subscribed, I love you.